This is take two. It feels so weird recording in the back of my car, but I've done weirder things. I have a story I've been keeping secret for years. I don't want to hide it anymore. I've been struggling with how to tell this story for a while. This will be long. This will be rambly and messy and painful. The wording will be incomprehensible and awkward. I didn't proofread or edit any of this. I don't think I can care about that anymore. I just have to say it. In the last 5 years, I've been in handcuffs 4 times. I've been in the back of police cars 4 times. After the handcuffs came off, I was confined by myself in a 5 foot by 8 foot room with one bed, one chalkboard, no window, and a guard outside my door 24/7 for up to 48 hours straight. I had to ask to use the bathroom. I had to ask for pads and tampons. I had nothing to do except color with crayons and read a single book. They watched me on camera 24/7 and came in to scold me if I was doing anything suspicious. They call this place a crisis stabilization unit. 4 years ago, I spent 4.5 months in a mental hospital. On my first night there, I was stripped naked and searched. They even looked inside my underwear. I spent my 16th birthday, one Halloween, one Christmas, and one Valentine's Day there. My personal belongings were searched 3 times a day. On several occasions, I had a staff member assigned to watch me for up to 2 weeks at a time, and for 1 week, a staff member had to watch me and be within 6 feet of me at all times, including when I was using the toilet and taking a shower. I had to ask staff members for access to my toothbrush, soap, shampoo, and journal. If I wanted to use a pencil, if I wanted to draw or write, someone had to watch me the entire time. After I ate, I could be personally searched if they thought I stole a plastic spoon or a packet of salt. I was banned from drinking coffee or caffeinated tea. I wasn't allowed to buy food for myself from the vending machine. I was carefully monitored to make sure I took all the miscellaneous medications they prescribed for me. At one point, I was taking 7 pills a day. Due to these medications, I felt nauseous and I couldn't physically experience hunger. As a result, I was prescribed a nutritional drink once a day and forced to drink the entire thing even when I felt sick to my stomach. I wouldn't feel hungry again until 2 years after I left that hospital. The windows in my bedroom were thick, bulletproof plexiglass. There is no way to open them except through a covered slit in the wall for fresh air. The windows faced a wall or a thick bush, so I couldn't see the outside world. When I was allowed to go outside, I spent that time in an exercise yard with fences that were 10 or 15 feet tall. For 4.5 months, I had no internet, limited access to a television that only played media for children, and the only way I knew about current events was when staff members snuck a newspaper to me once or twice. I didn't see anything except the walls inside this hospital for 134 days. In these places, I watched my peers get tackled, handcuffed, involuntarily ejected with sedatives, and placed in restraints. In these places, I was deprived of most pleasures that make life worth living. In these places, most of my peers came and gone within the span of 2 weeks, constantly leaving me living among strangers. In these places, I was locked away like a prisoner, and I was deprived of my privacy, my dignity, and my autonomy. These were the consequences for what I'd done. My crime was being so depressed I was suicidal. My crime was living with undiagnosed PTSD for so many years that I couldn't see any way out except trying to kill myself. And as a result, I was placed in handcuffs, detained like a criminal, and placed under 24/7 supervision under the pretense of saving my life, of healing me. But it's taken me 4 years to realize these experiences really just tacked on new traumas to my life, leaving me needing more years of therapy to heal than I needed when I was institutionalized. We need to talk. We need to talk about the criminalization of mentally ill people. We need to talk about the way the mental health system fails to serve those in need until they try to kill themselves or someone else a couple of times. We need to talk about the fact that people suffering from mental illness are made to feel like criminals for showing symptoms the only way they know how. We need to talk about the hatred of homeless people who look or sound mentally ill. We need to talk about the fact that mentally ill people are shuffled straight into the system, bouncing around in foster care, through group homes, and arrested for flying under the radar for so long that they become dangerous to themselves or others. We need to talk about how symptoms of mental illness are perceived as criminal behavior and how criminals are seen as products of mental illness. And I watched this in action. I watched others who, like myself, were brought in with handcuffs, had a picture taken of them like a mugshot, changed into scrubs, and were released into this environment where humanity was stripped of each patient, where each sick person brought in for treatment could never be trusted. I watched other teens being transferred into this hospital to and from court, to and from prison. I watched peers who were arrested and came back to the hospital again and again, multiple times while I was there. Because that hospital wasn't a place of healing. It was a holding cell. It was a place where they could legally take away your rights, forcefully medicate you, and then release you back into the world once you were sedated, only providing something resembling a written safety plan that was supposed to continue your stabilization. These places where I spent 5 months of my life weren't hospitals. They were holding cells. How was I supposed to heal, to learn that life was maybe worth living when they took away all the things that would, in fact, make life worth living? How was I supposed to know that being alive was worth it when my waking hours were spent just trying to pass the time? How was I supposed to heal from my traumas when I was being continually stressed out every single waking minute of my life in those places? I'm not an expert. I'm not a social justice warrior or a doctor or a therapist. I don't even know how many other people are like me. I know they're out there. I remember the people I met. I remember the one who came from juvie, the ones who were brought in by the police, the ones who were homeless and released only to fend for themselves again, the ones who came in with drug addictions and left with severe withdrawals. There was one girl I met in the first hospital where I'd been for 4.5 months. I met her in a different hospital a year later. She was still just as meth addicted and just as homeless as she was after spending 2 weeks in the hospital with me the prior year. The system failed her. And I know that all these people exist. I know there's so many others like me who have been pipelined through the mental health system. And I'm one of the lucky ones. I got out. I got a therapist. I have a roof over my head and food to eat and people who love me. For God's sake, I'm going to school. I'm getting a degree in a few months. But in the last 5 years, I've never stopped thinking about all the ones who didn't make it. All the ones who are trapped in the cycle, shuffled between mental health institutions and criminal institutions. Back and forth. Over and over. And I'm never going to forget the culture shock I experienced in my own community when I got out of the hospital. I entered the hospital in October of 2015. I left in the end of February of 2016. When I got out, I could listen to music that wasn't limited to one pop radio station whenever I pleased, or I could listen to silence. I could use a bathroom with a door that closed whenever I wanted. I could choose to eat or not eat if I pleased. I went to school and I could use pencils and pens and paper and I could learn. Everyone was just so happy and so energetic and so normal. And since I'd been cut off from society, I came back and there were new memes and new video games. The local pop radio station was playing all sorts of new songs I've never heard before. I didn't know who Damn Daniel was or what the deal with his white vans was. Donald Trump was suddenly a very hot topic. There was this weird new game called Undertale involving a fish lady, and it was apparently created by the guy who wrote music for Homestuck. Pop culture had radically shifted in the time I had been away. Everyone was just living life so normally, and I felt so lost in my own community. And I couldn't tell a single person the full extent of what had happened to me over the last few months. I couldn't talk about where I'd gone or why I felt like some alien who'd been transplanted into human society. I was just expected to function as if I'd had the privilege of experiencing privacy, dignity, human rights, and autonomy the entire time. I got out. I'm one of the lucky ones. I haven't stopped feeling guilty about it. I've been hiding this story from everyone because of the stigma attached to all this. But every single time I hear someone say something like, oh, I think every office needs a window, or if I couldn't watch the news, I would die, or going outside is nature's antidepressant, I'm immediately catapulted back to those times when I didn't have a window, when I couldn't watch the news, when I couldn't go outside. Something needs to change. People tell me I'm not alone. I know there's others out there like me. I saw enough people go through the hospital to know there's others who have been through the same thing. But would anyone in my life today understand? Would they?